There's this book called The Game by Neil Strauss. I don't know if you ever read that book.
Yeah,
but
Neil's great.
Neil, you know, he went into that world of pickup artistry, learned it, and he was great with the women. But then once he found that woman that he fell in love with, all that stuff doesn't work anymore. So you have a lot of men being taught how to handle women in general, but they don't understand that's not how you handle the woman you truly love. And so now again, you have individuals who, though they are truly in love with this person, they constantly mishandle it with bad guidance, with fear, and all these things. This is what makes it hard. And I even think that a lot of times the people who are supposed to be together sometimes will have the hardest time getting together. But I believe that once we're able to conquer that part of it and actually come together, it's not hard. Yes, it takes work. I believe we have to be conscious and mindful of how we treat our partners, how we show up, being willing to listen. But I think it's so much easier to do those things with someone you have a connection with and you're truly in love with. It's gonna always feel 10 times harder when you're in the wrong relationship. And I would argue the vast majority of people are in the wrong relationship. That's why they're seeing it be so difficult. And when you see this whole it's easy, typically it's easy because you have two people who are not digging deeper. They're trying to ride out that chemistry we talked about earlier for as long as possible, all right? So yeah, it seems like it's great, it's easy, no issues, but it doesn't really work like that because they're just not facing the reality of the situation. So I think we have to understand that there is gonna be some bumps in the road because of all the things that people have been through. But once we're able to come together and we know this is our partner, this is who we want to share our life with, it can get so much better.
Yeah, and do you think that people have just been given generally the wrong education on how to deal with another person in their life?
100%.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, a lot of individuals are giving advice from a bitter, hurt place. They're trying to disguise it as I'm just looking out for you. No, you haven't healed and you cannot properly guide them in a positive and loving manner. And I think that a lot of people, you know, I always say it's funny how we'll spend a lot of time getting educated for the sake of our careers and business, but we don't do the same for relationships. And yet relationships arguably are even more important than that career or business. And even if it's not a romantic relationship, just relationships in general, your ability to coexist with others, connect with others is extremely important. If you want that business to succeed, you have to learn how to establish business relationships. There's no way around it. So we have to learn how to talk to people, listen to people, you know what I'm saying? And just make things work when we come together with other individuals. So I definitely think that we're just lacking in a lot of education. And again, because there's so many voices on the internet now, there's just so much bad advice being given. And the individuals giving it, they may be giving like, let's say 80% of the advice is accurate, but it's that 20% that's completely off that can derail everything. And that's the stuff that people are gravitating to, and it's just causing a lot of problems.
Can you give us some example of some of the, like not specific people or anything like that? I just mean like, could you give an example of bad advice and what about it is bad or unhealthy for people to try and put into practice?
Okay, so one thing I heard recently was an individual said some of the best advice he can give to men is to not fall in love. You know, basically just find a woman you want to be with and kind of keep it there. The reason why I view that as horrible advice is because you sit down with any man who's lived enough life, they will all be able to say there's been at least one time they fell deeply for a woman, all right? The problem isn't falling deeply for a woman. The problem is we don't know how to handle it once we get there. The problem is because we're not accustomed to handling and processing our emotions a certain kind of way and being this vulnerable, we don't understand what's gonna be required of us in that moment. We also kind of lose sight of, because I'm a big believer in masculine and feminine energy, and I believe that if she was attracted to you because of that masculine energy that you give off, and now you become this emotional wreck because you don't know how to handle all these feelings you have for her, well, you start to become less attractive to her. And it's not that it's not fixable, it's fixable, but again, a lack of understanding and awareness derails the situation. So rather than telling men don't fall in love because it's inevitable, Let's teach them how we walk in love, what I call loving in your masculine, how you maintain that energy and still be able to pour into that woman in a way that allows the relationship to flourish.
Yeah, and how does that work when, I think obviously a lot of people in that example that you're giving, if the person's attracted to someone because of their masculine energy, but at the same time they want them to be empathetic and compassionate and kind, which are generally seen as more feminine energy, how does that person balance the two? Or is that not how you're explaining it? Is that not?
No, it's about balance. So we have to understand we all have masculine and feminine energy within us. I'm a believer in one must be your dominant energy. The other is the one you tap into when necessary. So as a man, you can walk in your masculine and in those moments, tap into those things. But you can't just stay there all the time, all right? You can't just become this needy, emotional guy. That's not gonna work in the vast majority of cases. And so what happens is there's this messaging that's being thrown out there that women don't like good guys. I don't believe that's what it is. I believe that women become less attracted when you don't know how to exude and walk in your masculine energy. And we're hiding behind the label of good guy. You can be a good guy and still exude masculine energy. And that's the thing. And we also think that, oh, they like bad boys. No, if you look deeper, it's really the masculine energy that quote unquote bad boy exudes. But what they desire is a mixture of both. The same way that we would want a mixture of both. We would want a loving, sweet woman, feminine woman, whatever. And if you're a guy who wants a masculine woman, cool. But you don't want her to be just that. You know, you want her to have the ability to tap into that other side when necessary. I think we all desire that balance in our partner, and I think it's healthy. And if we just learn how to maintain it and how to nurture it, we would see greater success in relationships.
Yeah, what are some of the skills with mastering that energy that you think we're missing out on in balancing that energy and knowing when to be which? And because the reason why it's hard is I think we live in a binary world, right? Like you feel like you have to choose. Mm-hmm. Like you're either a bad boy or you're a good guy. You're a doer or you're a thinker. You're a winner or you're a loser, right? Like we think like that. And so people go, okay, I can either be masculine or I can be feminine. And I definitely relate to what you were saying. Like I believe that there is a lot about me that is massively masculine in energy, using that language and terminology, my drive, my ambition, how I work, my strategic mind. And at the same time, I consider myself to have a lot of great feminine energy and qualities where it comes to like empowering others and nurturing and the ability to hold deep, compassionate space and be empathetic, which are all powerful qualities for everyone, right? Beyond gender, they're powerful qualities. And I appreciate, and it's taken a long time to know when to be which. And I still make mistakes, right? There's still sometimes I'm like, I should have been more assertive, or I should have been more affectionate. So we live in a world that finds it hard to hold two opposing ideas at the same time.
Yeah.
We don't know how to do that in any sphere of life, let alone within ourselves. Mm-hmm. So what are some of the skills that we can learn in order to nurture both those energies in a healthy way inside of ourselves?
So I think one, it's gonna require a lot of, if you're already in a relationship, it's gonna boil down to a lot of transparency and communication. You know, if you're that man trying to understand that woman and when you can walk in those two energies, her being willing to be honest and open about, you know what, this was too much over here, or I needed some of this over here. And in time, you're going to become more aware and understanding, and it's gonna be like second nature to you. You won't have to overthink it. And I think part of it is not overthinking it. It's kind of like being ourselves, but understanding that we have to learn when this is doing too much and vice versa. I also think that in reality, for a lot of men, especially when we're talking about relationships and kind of losing that masculine energy, the underlying issue is fear, all right? When we become so afraid of losing this woman, we lose ourselves. And so a lot of men now fall into this very feminine, needy space because they're just afraid. We have to learn that, listen, like to me, I feel if your partner thinks you're never gonna walk away from them, no matter what they do, you've lost.